Hi, beautiful and perfect spouses who are in relationships with other beautiful and perfect spouses. Think of yourself this way, as beautiful and perfect, or your spouse that way. When I teach swimming, I will let it slip in. When people come to the pool, I'll slip into the conversation how they brought their perfect, amazing body with them today. I never get anybody who's like, yes, that is exactly what I thought too. Usually they just kind of like shrink up, like, you haven't seen this body, right? They like make themselves small and less. But the truth is, their body got them here today. In this case, particular scenario, it's to the pool, ready to like learn something new and foreign. Their body is perfect. It's amazing that it's done all the things it needed to do to get them to that place right there. Now, since I've known swimming forever and I'm not the person overcoming fear in water, it's really easy for me to hold that space for my clients in there. One I have to work on is that I am the one I started out asking you, calling you a beautiful and perfect person to be in the relationship you're in. Your spouse is a beautiful and perfect person to be in the relationship you're in. Not that I do everything perfectly or my spouse does. I mean, we're just human, as you are, right? We don't do everything perfect, but it's very useful to see ourselves as the perfect person to be in the relationship we're in right now. Our partner's the perfect person to be in our relationship right now, because I am, you are, we are. It's just the fact. And I can shrink away from it and feel badly about myself and the way people tend to talk badly about their own bodies, or I can really uplift myself and change how I view myself and my partner, that we are exactly the right people at the right time in the right place for our relationship. Anything is possible from here. It sets a whole different tone of love and respect and honor. Speaking of tones, I just like started out on this tangent here because I just wanted to share a little love, feeling a little love. Today, this isn't even what we're talking about. Tones, setting out in different tones. The topic of today is about transitions, right? Tones. That's what made me think of it. You ever have a spouse that gets toned out? This is a very common thing in the fire service world, right? They get toned out and off they go, especially for those of you who your spouse, if they are home. If I know a lot of volunteer firefighters, they leave from home. My particular spouse is a full-time employee, so I don't hear the tones, them getting toned out. But we all feel these transitions. So we're going to talk about transitions today because this is a really stressful, it can be a really stressful, really hard part, a tremendous source of suffering in our relationships with our first responders, with our firefighters, or really with any relationship where two people are coming together and then they are separated. Could be short separation, could be big separation, whatever it is. But these transitional times. So I'm going to share a few stories about transitions. You have your own, and I hear them and we coach about them and listen to them. So I'm going to just kind of share some different perspectives and different ways people relate to transitions, because it's useful not to feel so alone. It's also useful to see it isn't all one way, right? We get stuck into our own little worlds and our own little way of relating to things. And especially when things aren't feeling good and it doesn't seem to be working out, right? We spin over and over and over again. This is why you're here. You're like, I need some view. I need that 10,000 foot coaching view. So that's what some of those stories are going to be about today, to help us with that view, to take a little step outside of ourselves and outside of our own transitions and own stories. And then I'm going to give you, because I'm always about getting us into action, right? We got the ready, set, go piece here in the going into action. So I've got some questions for you today that are really going to change how you deal with transitions and open up that space for those transitions. Either to grow the transitions that are working really well, maybe you do them really well, or maybe you do some of them really well, right? You want to understand that and you can grow that and cultivate it. That doesn't just happen, right? There's something, it's a way that you are thinking about it that is creating that space for the transitions that are going well. Same is true on the other side of the coin, right? That to look at, the transitions that are not going so well, that feel really difficult and hard or chunky or whatever it is. How can I start to open that up so it doesn't just keep being exactly the same? All right, so let's dive in. Sorry, I went back to a swimming pun again. Let's tone in stories, transitions. So there's two kind of major categories I think of in terms of transition. One is the transition out when the spouse leaves, and there's the transition in when the spouse comes back, when the partner comes back. So for me, I'll just share the first story is just for me, the transition out is actually a really easy one for me. And I was surprised to hear when I started coaching people and working with other spouses that there's a lot of people that the transition out is really hard for them. For me, it's easy in that I'm kind of an introvert and I like to set up my space the way I like it, right? So I pretty quickly into our fire relationship realized, all right, when my spouse is gone, I can pick up the stuff and put things where I want them. And like, I get to run the show. And there's some not great things about running the show, right? Because you make all the decisions, but the other side, you make all the decisions. You get to like just decide and not have to take somebody else's opinion into it in that period of time. So, in this small things too, my spouse has some particular eating things that are important and to their health. And so when my spouse is home, we eat a particular way because he would get sick and I don't want him to be sick if we ate differently. So when they're gone, I, bring in those foods that would make them very, very sick. So those transition times for like my special space was very easy for me. Even when we had kids, there's other pieces to it with our kids being young and whatnot, but just kind of that little transitional zone, I developed this little ritual for myself of putting things where I want them, changing the meals just a little bit, and just really kind of owned into I get to make the decisions and I don't have to worry about somebody else in that space. Now, for other people that I've coached and I work with, right, the transition away is really hard. They are less introverted than I am. They may be more extroverted. That time alone is not something that they're used to. What do I do with myself in that time? Or perhaps there's also a lot of worries or fears about that time. Will they be able to handle things? What is it like to sleep by myself? If I've been sleeping with this person, I'm like, just stretch out and take up the whole bed, right? Other people are like, I am so comforted and I would feel lonely when my spouse isn't there. So different people have different relationships to it. And so the flip side of that is the transition back in, right? So for me, the transition back in a little bit rockier because now, oh, I need to make those decisions with another person, right? I have more considerations of planning out our food differently. And I have to do things like label the food. If I've brought in food to the house that my spouse can't eat, right? I need to make sure that I communicate that. I don't mind. It's fine. I've gotten into the program of that, but there's these little things that can make the transition coming back in. I actually know that piece, the food piece in our particular household, is a bit harder on my spouse, right? Just because the food is very significant for them, that they kind of have this, I'm not really sure. And it's not as easy, right? When they go to the fire station, they get their own food and just know exactly what it is. When they come home, now I got to find out again, right? This is a transitional piece that we have to deal with. Other people are just like, woohoo, spouse is back, party time, super fun, celebration. This is really easy. Or I get to, they're taking the kids, whatever it is, right? We have different ways that we relate to these transition times. So many different variables in there as well. So what I really want for you is to really stop and don't just say these transitions happen to me. That you get to, and that they're right or they're wrong or they're good or they're bad. We get kind of overwhelmed with the whole huge picture of them. The kids, the jobs, food in our case, loneliness, scared, missing out, feeling disconnected, having your introverted quiet time, different components for different people. So what I want you to consider is to really take a step back and look at those transition times for yourself. Again, they don't just happen. We actually cultivate them with the way that we think about them, right? I think about stretching out in the bed is this very luxurious thing. It's not to say that I don't love cuddling with my spouse. I do. When my spouse is there, we spend a pretty much a good part of the night connected physically in some way. And that really grounds me. And I really love that time too. But the way I think about both of those times really dictates how I feel and show up to them. So when you think about your transitions, I want you, here's where the questions are to help unfold your transitions. Stop for a moment, take 5 minutes and answer these questions. Really write them down, right? This is the action part. You can't just think about it in your head, but actually take a little action here. See for yourself, what do you really love? What is something you like? Now, maybe like me saying, I love stretching out in the bed. That could be, I did have to couch it to you that I also do love cuddling with my spouse. Maybe you feel a little embarrassment about something you love, or it's something like, maybe I'm not supposed to love this, or I should really love cuddling with my husband and should feel like I'm lonely and miss them. Not that it's luxurious to take up the whole bed. Give yourself space to just love what you love, or to like what you like, or enjoy what you like. What are the things that you feel positive about? The things that you are willing to share with somebody, and maybe the things that you want to just keep kind of private to yourself, however it presents to you, but allow yourself to have space to see in the transition away or in the transition back in, what do I like? What are some of the good things about it? And then the flip side of that is, what don't I love? What don't I like, right? There is a certain amount of peace. I said, I get to make all the decisions, which I love and I don't love, right? Then I'm responsible for them as well. Or I don't love it when it's a complicated decision, like with my children, right? I do like having another person to talk things through with and vet them through with and to problem solve with. And when my spouse is gone, I don't have that. So I don't really love that. There are times, or I don't really love not being able to share something of the day right in that moment, in the spontaneous moment. I need to sometimes pin it or remember it or share it in a different way, right? Share it in a text versus in a conversation that I can just drone on about. But look at the things. This first question is, what do I like? And let yourself like things. And what don't I like? What don't I love? And let yourself not love them, right? Just be who you are. This is the first part in making a change with anything, is to know your story right now. What is it that I do and don't like? Then the next question to really look at is, what do I make it mean? This is part of my let yourself like stretching out the bed if that's what you like. Do I make it mean I like being by myself when, or that I'm not a good spouse, or I'm not a cuddler and something's wrong with that? What do I make it mean? The things that I love and the things that I don't love. What do I make it mean about myself? What do I make it mean about my relationship? This is kind of like, how am I judging myself? Really, again, let yourself open up and see things that I love and the things that I don't love. What do I make it mean and say about myself? Then the next question we can ask ourselves is, when I'm thinking this way, how do I feel? When I allow myself to enjoy taking up the whole bed, and I just say, yeah, it's totally 100% fine that I love taking up the whole bed for, well, I was going to say 24 hours. I don't lay in bed for all 24 hours while they're gone, but for that one night. And then because I get to then fill up with all the cuddle time for the other 24 or 96 hours or whatever time that my spouse happens to be home. This stretching out allows me to give space for when they're back. And when I think about it that way, I'm able to feel embracing and upholding of who I am and not resisting of who I am. So when you look at how you think about these transition times, see how, as individual statements, it makes you feel. And when you are feeling the particular way, if you're feeling loved or connected or honored or shameful or embarrassed or lonely, whatever the feeling is, right? Because there may be different ones for different pieces of the transition. If somebody was to see you feeling lonely, let's take that one for a moment, because I know a lot of people feel lonely when their spouse is gone. What would somebody observe of your behavior when you're in the space of lonely? How do you behave? How do you show up into your life? And just let yourself, with kindness, see what it is. And then the final one, is this the result of those behaviors that you want to have in your life? For the one of feeling lonely, when we're lonely, oftentimes we don't reach out. We don't send a text message of connection, or we don't look to ourselves as being a good companion for ourselves, or we think about all the times when our spouse is gone and not the times when they are there, that we might disconnect more when we're in the presence of feeling lonely. Now, you don't have to rush to try and change that feeling, but just gently asking yourself, is that the result I want? And if it's not, we just really want to get curious about these questions and to see, is this the only way available to think about the transition? That I feel lonely during the transition, or happy during the transition, or whichever particular feeling you're feeling. Our feelings of lonely or self-confident or embarrassed or left out or connected or disconnected, they don't come from the transitions in or out. That is just neutral. Our spouses coming and going is completely neutral. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just a fact of how our relationships operate. But the way we think about it, that's what creates our feelings. And our feelings then drive those actions and give us our results. Giving ourselves space to be curious about that model around transitions of how am I thinking about it? And what does that thought pattern result in my life? Is that the result I want? Maybe it is, and maybe it's not. You get to decide. You get to decide what is right for you and your relationship, how you want to think about it that serves your life in the very best way. All right, my friends, I'm going to finish like I started to remind you that you are the perfect person to be in your relationship that you are in right now. And so is your spouse. Because you are. You two are in it. You're doing your very best, each of you, together and apart in developing your relationship. Is it perfect? No, but nobody is. It's okay. You're a growing, caring, developing person, and so is your spouse. And your relationship is the best place to grow together. Grow in yourselves and grow together. All right, my friends, be committed, be present, show up with curiosity and love for yourself and for your spouse. Oh, I promised you one more thing. How to take action here. Hey, I want to hear what you have to say about your transitions. What is the story that you tell about your transitions? Answer these questions or some of these questions. I would love to see this in an email. I will email you back and let you know that I got it. Maybe offer a little coaching if you'd like a little coaching on it to get that view and that perspective. So come on over relationshipsonfire.com. That's relationships with an S on fire.com. My contact information is in there. Pop me an email and tell me, what do you love? What don't you love? What are you making it mean? When you think this way, how do you feel? And when you feel this way, what are the ways that you act in the world? And is this the result that you want? I'd love to hear from you. It's so useful. Put it in action, not just let it spin around and around in your head. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you can get every episode. And when you are ready to be in action, come find us. Facebook, Instagram, or our website. It's all the same name, relationshipsonfire.com. We've got that S on there. There's lots of us having relationships. So relationships with an S on fire.com. Thanks so much. Saying goodbye, your fire and water gal, Corey Micah. See you next time.